One of the things that Christians will sometimes wonder about is the relationship between being saved by God's grace, apart from our works, and the role of works in our day-to-day life. In other words, if God does not save us because we live such good lives, and if our obedience has contributes nothing to our salvation, then can't we just live any way we want? Does God really get concerned? Does he really worry about whether or not we're following the Ten Commandments, or whether or not we're trying to be honest, or live with sexual integrity, or honor those in authority, or whatever it is? Does God really care? Now, Lord's Day 24 of the Catechism reminds us that our works contribute nothing to our salvation because God's standard is so high and so perfect that it's impossible for anything that we do to measure up to that standard. However, the Catechism actually goes on to explain that those who genuinely have been converted to Christ can't help but begin to live a life of obedience. In other words, for the Christian, for the genuine Christian, obedient living is a fruit of what God has already done in us through Christ. Now, the question is, how do you know? How do you know whether the obedience that you are seeking and the obedience that you are striving for, how do you know that that's really the result of what the Holy Spirit is doing in your life? One of the things that you can pay attention to is whether or not the obedience that you are seeking to offer to God is overshadowed with a sense of entitlement. In other words, some people are obedient, but they believe that because of their obedience, God owes them something. He owes them blessings and answered prayers and ultimately a ticket to heaven when they die. And so when things go badly, they feel resentful and angry towards God. Other people are very obedient, but there's an anxiousness about that. There's that sense that they're always not doing enough, that their obedience isn't good enough, and maybe I should be doing more, and when will God finally be satisfied? And finally, for other people, some people see obedience as drudgery. It's duty, it's responsibility, but there's no joy. Genuine believers rest in the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross, and their obedience then is filled with a sense of enjoyment and delight in God. There's a sense of accepting and trusting God, even when bad things happen, that still God desires the path of obedience.